All right. Well, I'm not sure about you, but this year, 2017, has started off with some incredible moments. But I'll be honest, there's also been some moments that haven't been so incredible. But overall, I'm trusting and I'm believing that 2017 is going to be an incredible year for my life, in my life. And so here's the thing about it. We are already almost 2 complete months in. Like, it's not really a new year anymore, right? It kind of feels like it's old already. And so it's just amazing how time flies. And here we are, we're wrapping up this week. We'll be closing up the month of February. We'll be in March. How many of you are looking forward to warmer weather? Yeah, me too. I love the spring season. I love not only the spring season, but I love summer. I'm not a fan of winter. I like seeing winter on the mesa from afar, but I don't like yeah, it looks beautiful when you look out there in the mornings, right? But I enjoy warm weather. And so, anyhow, but I'm believing that God has some incredible things in store for my life. But beyond just for me, I believe He has some great things in store for my family. I believe He has incredible things in store for us as a church family. In fact, we started this year off with, like we do every year, and that's 21 days of prayer and fasting. And as we started off in this 21 days of prayer and fasting, I began to really ask God, Lord, what do you have in store for us? And I began to write things down. And I began to pray a certain prayer over my life and over every area of my life. I began to pray multiplication. I began to say, God, would you multiply things in my life? Let me experience things in multiples. Let me see you work in ways in my life that would only be described as those only God-type moments. And that's what I began to pray. That's what I began to pray not only over my life, over my family, but I also began to pray that over us as a church, that this year would be a year of multiplication. And so far, I've seen some great things transpire in the short, almost 2 months of this new year. I've seen some great things happen in various areas of my life, but I'm expectant that the best is still yet to come. And that's what I'm praying for you today, that you would turn a page in your heart, that you would turn a page in your mind, and you would, instead of looking at this year and saying, well, we've already messed up on our New Year's resolutions, I've already kind of fumbled through those goals that I set. No, let it be today that you decide and determine in your own heart that you're saying, my best days in 2017 are still in front of me. The best things, the very things that God has in store for my life, for my family, for our church, they're in front of us. They're not behind us. And so that's what I'm praying that God would do in all of us today. But today, we're going to wrap up our Rooted Message series. And as we've kind of gone through this series, God has spoke to our hearts on several fronts in several different areas of our lives. And what I would encourage you and remind you of, if you've never downloaded the Junction Community Church app, I would encourage you to go to your app store and download the Junction Community Church app, because you can always follow up on a message. If you missed a message from last week or a couple weeks ago, you can go right there within the app. You can click the videos, and then you can watch a direct video from YouTube. And it's a great way for us to catch up. Sometimes when God is speaking to our hearts through a message, we're writing down notes. I know that's what I do. I take out a notebook, or I take out my Evernote on my phone, and I'm writing things down. I'm like, okay, I got to remember this. And what I'll do is I'll go back. But sometimes I have to hear that message 2 or 3 times. Maybe it's because I'm hard-headed. That's probably why I have to hear it more than once. But I need to go back and really rehash and rediscover what God was saying into my heart. But that's what's great about the app, is we can do that. So I want to encourage you, if you missed a message, or if there's a message you wanted to go back to, because we talked about many great things over the last several weeks, but I would encourage you to go back and revisit those things. But as we kicked off this series, we looked at a few verses from Psalm 1, and I'd like to revisit those verses this morning. In fact, revisit them in the sense of really just camp on them for a minute. And so I'm going to ask you to go with me to Psalm chapter 1, verse 1. We have it here on screen, but you can go there on your YouVersion or your Bible, whatever works for you. But we're going to look at this. This is from the New International Version today. And it says, blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers. And so it starts off with saying, look, there's a blessing in store. Blessed is the one, blessed is the individual who does not walk in step with the wicked. In other words, he doesn't This is the type of person that he doesn't find himself to have companions that are wicked. And we all have a little bit of wickedness in us, I think, and we all not only have a little bit in us, but sometimes we get around the wrong crowd, right? And sometimes that wrong crowd, man, it's our brother, and we're like, man, I love my brother, but man, I probably shouldn't be around him. You ever feel like that? But blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way of sinners. That, in other words, the posture of his life, the way he stands, and this is true for our lives in any capacity, that it's not just that we're not walking in step with the wicked, but we're not standing in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers. We're not taking that kind of a posture to life, right? So blessed is the one. It goes on in verse 2, it says, but whose delight, and that's the key word I really want to focus in on today, delight. But whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on His law day and night. And so blessed is the one who does not walk in the way of sinners. Blessed is the one who doesn't follow these ways, but instead, whose delight is in the law of the Lord, who really finds delight in the Lord. And that's where we started this series out. We talked about discovering God and deepening our spiritual roots and really discovering what God has in store for our lives, and how important it is for us to come back to that constantly and deepen our roots in God. And so that's where we started out. But it's a reminder that those who delight themselves in the law of the Lord, and I would just take it a step further, not just that they would delight themselves in the law in terms of the Bible, but that they would delight themselves in God, that they would find that they are connected to God on a deeper level. And let me just say this. We never arrive here on earth. We're always in process. We're always in progress. We never arrive. God is constantly working in us. He's constantly working on us. But our delight must be in the law of the Lord. Our delight must be in Him. And I've determined for me in 2017, and I say this at the start of every year, I say, Paul, if you're going to have a great year in 2016 and 2017 and 2018 and 2019 and so on and so forth, it's going to be because you make it great spiritually. And so with that in mind, I want to delight myself in the law of the Lord. Now, reading on in verse 3, it continues. It says this. It says, that person, the person that delights themselves in the law of the Lord, the person that delights them, that spends quality time with God, that prioritizes God, that person is like a tree planted by streams of water. And so something unique transpires out of this. This is where we got our rooted series theme from. This very verse. That person is a tree planted or rooted by streams of water. Now, I love trees. I love nature. I love getting out. How many of y'all like just hanging out and going hiking or hunting, or I don't know what you like doing, but just being out there, you know? I love it. And you know what I love especially about being out in the mountains is that I like to get far enough away where there's no cell phone coverage, you know? Just so I can be checked out, fishing, doing whatever, but being in that environment. Now, one of the things is that as you walk along streams, as you gather around a stream, or even as you look into a field, and you'll see where there's a stream, there's trees, right? It's pretty obvious. There's water, there's stream, there's a river, there's something there that is allowing these trees to grow. And that's what this person is like. The person who delights themselves in the Lord, the person who delights themselves in His law and in His ways and in His truth, that person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. 3 things come out of that. There are 3 things that show up in this verse that I think are so important for us. The first one it says is that it yields its fruit in season. And I'm just telling, I just want to encourage you to realize that as you delight yourself in God, and as you really focus on your relationship with Him, and as you engage in that relationship with Him, that there is going to be fruitfulness that's going to come off your life. And I would encourage you in your life that whatever God has in store for you, whatever hopes and dreams are inside of you, that you begin to realize that as you delight yourself in God, there are going to be those moments where there's fruitfulness in your life. And I know for me, I want to walk in God's fruit. Now, you say, well, what is that? And I'm not going to completely teach on that today, but in Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 and 23, we learn about the fruits of the Spirit, which is really God's character that come from His Spirit. But the reality is this, is that as we delight ourselves in God, we're going to be fruitful. And I believe that that transcends just this spiritual box that sometimes we want to put God into. We want to put God into this spiritual box that says, oh, it's about Sunday morning. But no, it's bigger than Sunday morning. It's about our lives. And I believe that as we delight ourselves in God, we can be fruitful in every area of our life. We can be fruitful when it comes to our relationships. We can be fruitful when it comes to the way we manage our health. We can be fruitful when it comes to how we manage our money. We can be fruitful in every area of our lives. As we delight ourselves in God, as we delight ourselves in the Lord, there's fruitfulness. And you've been around people, and I'm not talking about fruity people. I'm talking about fruitful people. I'm talking about you've been around people, and you're just like, man, everything they do seems to prosper. Everything they talk about just seems like it's just going well for them. There's just certain people, and you like to be around them, right? You know what I'm talking about? You just like to be around them. You just want to it's those kind of people because they're just infectious. Whatever they're talking about, you're excited about it, and you've never been excited about it before in your life, but at the moment they start talking about it, you're all in. You know, you're like, what are we doing? Where are we going? But they're fruitful in every area of their life. They're those kind of people. And as we delight ourselves in God, we will certainly walk in that same fruitfulness. But then the second part of this, it says, whose leaf does not wither. Let me just point that out. Because I don't know if you've realized, but life is difficult. And there are going to be moments in life where you feel dry and discouraged and downright you just do not want to keep going. There are going to be moments in life where you feel like you can't make it. And it's what we call desert moments, right? We find ourselves in the desert and we're just dry, and maybe it's emotionally you're dry, and you wake up in the morning and you just don't feel like getting out of bed. You just don't feel like going to work. You just don't feel like dealing with those people. You just don't feel, and we have these seasons of desert in our life. And let me just say this. I wish I can give you the magic pill that would take all that away. I can't. And you know what? I don't think God wants to take those things from us. But I'll tell you this. I think God wants to strengthen us in those moments, because it's in the dark and discouraging moments of life that we're tested and we're stronger because of it. And I believe God uses those things. We all just want it easy, right? Not us here, but, other churches. We just want it easy, you know what I'm saying? We want life to be easy. And recently I had a conversation with one of my uncles, and we got on the subject about life being easy, and his whole comment was like, man, life ain't easy until you're 6 feet under. So for the rest of the time, you better just make life happen. Just go after it, because it's not going to be easy until it's over. But here's the reality. We're going to face those dry moments in life. Maybe you're going through something like that right now. Maybe you're facing a situation that feels difficult. You're facing a situation and you feel dry spiritually. You feel discouraged. Maybe it has to do with your spiritual journey. Maybe it has to do with some area of your life. Maybe in your relationships right now, you are absolutely frustrated. You are feeling like this is not what I signed up for. Maybe some of you that are married, you're thinking, can I get a new one? Because this isn't working out. And here's the thing. We have this statement, this thought that I really don't like, but it's like, we fall in love, right? Oh, I just fell in love. Like, oh, it was like an accident. I just tripped and then I fell in love, and I just think like, it really doesn't work like that, because if it worked like that, then you can fall out of love. And a lot of people talk like that. They're like, I just don't love her anymore. I'm like, really? Like, you just don't because love is a choice. It's not about a feeling. It's about a choice. It's about every day waking up and saying, yeah, you know what? There may be some difficulty going on in my relationship, but I'm choosing today to love this person. I'm choosing today to love my wife. I'm choosing today to love my kids, because some days I got to choose to love them. Nah, they're easy to love. They got to choose to love me because they're dealing with dad. Dads aren't fun sometimes, right? And all the fathers, amen. All right. So, but here's the thing. You're going to face those moments in life where you feel discouraged. Again, relationally, financially, maybe you're going through a hardship. There's something in your life. And all I would say is that when you delight yourself in God, it's not going to be perfect. He may not take away the struggle, but I'll tell you what, you won't dry up in the middle of the struggle. You'll feel like I'm going through this and I'm feeling discouraged and I'm feeling the weight of all this. But I'm telling you, when you delight yourself in the Lord and you determine in your heart that I'm going to delight myself in Him, that I'm going to discover His Word on a daily basis, that I'm going to follow His plan, His purpose for my life. When you get to that point, when you decide that, this is what happens in your life. You're like that tree that's planted, and not only do you yield your fruit, but in that dry season of life, you can make it through. And I remember early on in my Christianity, my walk with God, because when you're young, you know everything, right? And, right around probably 19 or 20, I knew everything. And so I was like, God, what are you trying to do in my life? I feel so like you're so far from me. I feel so disconnected from you. And I went through this season of just drought. That's the only way I can describe it, drought and desert. And there's been many of those seasons. But in that moment, when I was first going through it in my relationship with God, I really had to dig deep. And I realized that God was doing His best work in me in those seasons. That God was doing His deepest work in my life when I felt like He was far. Because everybody can serve God when they feel like He's close. But what about when He feels like He's far? What about when it feels like He's not listening, or He's not hearing my prayers, or whatever it might be? When you feel like He's just way out there and He's not concerned about your situation, that's when you grow. That's when you really discover this, whose leaf does not wither. Then this last part, it says, whatever they do prospers. Whatever they do prospers. Now, when we use the word prosper, we often think about financial prosperity. And so we just think, oh yeah, whatever I do, I'm going to make a lot of money. And I don't think God has a problem with money. I think He can give you money. I think the problem that God has when it comes to money is when money has us. And you know what? Money can have us whether we have a little bit of it or a lot of it. And so it's not about money, though. It's about in every area of our lives. As we delight ourselves in the Lord, as we discover His purpose and His plan for our lives, as we do that, we're going to discover that all we do prosper, that everything we're a part of, that our relationships will be better. In fact, I can say this, like, I'm perfect. I'm pretty much perfect. But my wife, on the other hand, I'm saying, like, she's got some, she's not quite like me, right? All the men said, yeah, you gonna get yourself in trouble right there. They're like, oh shoot, no way, man, I'm about to get an elbow. So the point is this, though, is we're imperfect. We are imperfect. We have imperfections. And so things aren't always going to go perfectly. I'm going to make mistakes. But you know what? I'm committed that because I'm delighting myself in the Lord, even in my imperfections, God's going to allow my marriage to continue to go forward. And there's moments where it doesn't feel like, there's moments of struggle. That's life. But in relationships, we've got to realize as we delight ourselves in the Lord, He will allow us to prosper. And we've gone through this whole series about being rooted in God, and there are so many other levels and areas. I think about financially. I think about what it takes to really succeed financially. And you know what I realize is that I've got a lot to learn about that. But I also realize that I've seen God do some things in my life, financially speaking, that are completely only God type situations. I can't describe it any other way than that God has showed up in my life because I delighted myself in Him, because I've completely committed myself, and even in my generosity, I've said, God, I'm going to operate and live in generosity. And I've seen things happen in my life that I just cannot describe any other way but by the hand of God, by His favor, only God type moments. And so it's in relationships, it's in finances, it's in our spiritual journey, but everything we do. You ever just met that person that's good at everything? Right? Everything they do, everything they touch, like they can sing. Y'all want to hear me sing? I can't sing right now because, I don't know, I'm going to make some excuse. I can't sing. But there's some people who they can't sing, but they think they can. You know what I'm saying? Like they're like, Lord, we're praising You today, Lord. And like everybody around them, like, man, you cannot sing, But we're all nice, so we just smile and it sounds so beautiful. But like, here's my problem. I know I can hear that I can't sing. Like I start off like I have faith. Maybe today's the day it's going to change, and I'm going to be able to sing today. And it doesn't happen, but everything they do prospers. Again, we're not going to be perfect in every area, but what we can know is that God will allow us to prosper as we delight ourselves in Him. Now, here's the other thing that happens. As we delight ourselves in the Lord, I believe that something incredible begins to take place in our lives. I believe that as we commit to truly delighting ourselves in the Lord, something incredible begins to happen in our hearts, in our lives. I believe it with all my heart. There's something begins to transform on the inside of us. In fact, it reminds me of a verse we encounter in Psalm 37. And I would encourage you, I like to encourage you to do this. Go and read Psalm 37. Like, the whole thing is incredible. The whole thing is powerful. As I read it, I was like, man, just more. Just give me more. This is good stuff. Just one liner after the next. But then we get to verse 4. And verse 4 is powerful. Verse 4 for me really just opens up this perspective about this word delight. If we're to delight ourselves in the Lord, then it says here, take delight in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Take delight. In other words, delight yourself in the Lord. That same word, going back to Psalm 1. Delight yourself in the Lord. And then it finishes up with this. As we delight ourselves in the Lord, it says, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Here's what I think happens. There are two things that I think happens. There are two ways to look at this. Most people want to say this. They want to use God as a genie in the bottle. This is the way a lot of people like to use God, okay? None of us here this morning, though. They like to use God like, okay, God, I'm going to delight myself in you so that I can hook it up with her, I'm going to delight myself in you, Lord, because I'm needing a promotion at work. It's like we want to use God because this is the way we read this. This is one way to interpret it, and I think there's a degree of truth to it. But we read it like this. Take delight in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. In other words, all the desires that are in your heart, He's going to give them to you. In other words, you're going to be able to do what you want to do. You're going to get the girl. You're going to get the guy. You're going to, whatever you're hoping for, whatever you're dreaming for. Those things that are in your heart that you're desiring, those desires of your heart, it feels like if we delight ourselves in God, then He'll allow those things to happen in our lives. But I see it, that there's a level of truth to that, but here's the way I see it. I see it, and this is my own interpretation. I see it like this. Take delight in the Lord, and He will put desires. He will place desires in your heart. And so that's the way I see it, is take delight in the Lord. In other words, delight yourself in the Lord, and He will place desires and dreams and hopes in your heart. And all of a sudden that transforms this message. That transforms this scripture, because it's just not like, God, I'm going to serve you so that I can get what I want because I'm so selfish, right? It's not that. It's not that at all. What it's saying is, Lord, as I'm delighting myself in you, as I'm spending time in my relationship with you, as I'm discovering your word, God, in those moments, you're writing dreams on my heart. And you're writing things that you want to do in me. And here's the thing that starts to happen for me. Is as I delight myself in the Lord, and as I'm spending time with Him, and as I'm close with Him, all of a sudden I begin to have dreams. I begin to have these moments in my life where I'm dreaming about things, and you know what's scary about dreams? You know what scares us is that many a times our dreams in life are far too big for ourselves, right? They're God-sized dreams, and there's no way we can accomplish it. There's no way we can accomplish those things. But I believe that that's the kind of dreams that God wants to place in our hearts. Those are the kind of things that as we delight ourselves in the Lord, and as He puts and places dreams and hopes and desires in our lives, they're going to be big. And I would just encourage you for a moment to begin to dream big for your life. Dream big. You say, well, I would dream big, but I got a long list of excuses of why I can't. I've got a long list of not only excuses, but I got a long list of why I'm unable to experience the very best that God has in store for my life. And all I would encourage you with this morning, I would encourage you to dream big. I would encourage you to begin to dream. You know, I I was dreaming the other night, and it's scary when I start dreaming. I'm telling you, it scares me. It even now I get nervous just thinking about it because I start to dream about things. You know, one of the dreams I had at the beginning of this year was that I would go and I would compete in a jiu-jitsu tournament. Well, that happened, and then it was gold, and I'm not saying it was easy, but it was definitely I felt very calm in the situation. I didn't feel overwhelmed. I just felt like it just was natural. It came. It just happened. It was a part of it. But remember, I prayed, God, this year is a year of multiplication. So now I know that means there's a second tournament that I'm going to have to do this year. And I'm like, I just want to say, Lord, I didn't mean multiples in all areas of my life, you know, like, but that's one of them. Now I'm praying, okay, God, what's next? And you know what scares me is that the world's competition is in Vegas in August. And that's like that's the one that I feel brewing in my heart. I'm not committed yet, y'all. I'm trying to like weasel out to a smaller one or something, but I feel in my heart like, do I dream big? Do I dream of being a world champion? Can I dream that big? Because all of a sudden now, like, dreaming is a little bit scarier than you first thought about, right? And I dream about these things. I dream about other areas of my life. You know, I wrote down and going back to the 21 days of prayer, I wrote down financial goals. And as I was writing, I wrote down numbers. I wrote down goals. I wrote down things that were big. And I wrote down things that I couldn't accomplish by myself. That I wrote down things that my budget couldn't accomplish. I wrote down things that were bigger than my budget. And I said, God, I want to see this happen. I want to see these kind of things happen. How? I don't know, but I'm going to dream. I want to see these kind of things happen in my life. I want to see these kind of things. And you know what I really did a lot of dreaming about? The church. Because I really feel like God has called me to pastor this church. And I've said this and I'll say it again. I believe that our best days as a church are still ahead of us. Like what God has in store for us is still in front of us. But here's what it comes down to. Delight yourself in the Lord and He will give you the desires of your heart. I've already talked about some of those things. But God is putting dreams in my heart. And He's putting dreams in my heart for every area of my life. And specifically, He's putting dreams in my heart for us as a church. So, here's some of the things I'm dreaming about. Some of the things that I'm believing for as a church. But before I get to those, actually, let me say this. Let me ask you, what are you dreaming about? What is God putting in your heart? And what is God not only putting in your heart, but when you think about it, when I ask that question, it scares you. Because you're like, I can't do that. Or it scares you because you list all the limitations of why it won't happen. What thing is God putting in your heart to dream about? I don't know what it is for you. I don't know what it is for you. But dream. Dream. Because here's the thing. Maybe God put that there. Not maybe. I think He probably did. There's a dream in your heart, and you're like, I want to do this. I want to accomplish this. I believe that, again, as you delight yourself in God, He put that dream there. He put that. So if God put it there, then it's up to Him to accomplish it. It's up to Him to fulfill that. And so, Lord, this is scary. This is big. This is huge. But, Lord, I'm going to trust You. I'm going to trust You with this dream. I'm going to trust You with this thing in my life. So I would encourage you to keep that in mind, that if there's a dream there, it's probably from God. And so as I wind this down to a close, I want to talk about some of the things God has put on my heart for the church. See, I'm not sure what God has put in your heart, but I'm getting a glimpse of what He's placed in my heart. I'm getting a glimpse of not only what He placed in my heart for me, but what He's placed in my heart for my family, and certainly for us as a church family. And so I set some big goals this year for us as a church. You know, we last year we broke the 300 barrier in attendance on Easter, in-house, not online. Online, we broke over 400 between online and in-house. So I was like, well, could we break 400 this year? Could we break 400? And you know what? The reality is like we're averaging 184 people right now. So to break 400 is a big deal. And so I was like, yeah, I wrote it down. We'll break 400 at Easter. And then and trust me, we're 7 weeks away from that today. So I'm like, 7 weeks. We got 7 weeks to come up with everything we're planning and preparing, promotional material, everything that's going to happen for Easter. But I'm believing and I'm praying that we would break 400 in attendance on Easter. That can't be done but by God. There was another thing I wrote down. I started saying, you know what? We're averaging 184 right now. And so I'm thinking to myself, can we break 250 in a normal Sunday and a normal average Sunday? We've been praying. Our goal last year was 217. We got too shy of that. And now I'm like, Lord, why not make it 250 this year? And here's the thing. We say, the question always comes about, and I've talked about this in many messages, but it always comes about, well, why numbers? Because numbers matter to God. You say, well, why? I don't think so. Okay, here, let me just give you the bottom line. I have 3 daughters. If I woke up one morning and one of them was gone and missing, I wouldn't wake up saying, I still have 2. It was nice having Becca when I had her. No, my heart would break, right? You following me? My heart would be broken if I lost one of my daughters for any reason. And as a parent, that all of us can identify with that. And so as we look to our Heavenly Father, we've got to realize that numbers matter to Him because they're His children. They're not just lost people. They're just not wicked people. They're just not out there and whatever the case is. No, they're His people. They're His sons. They're His daughters. And He loves them. And when He wakes up in the morning, He misses His children. And that's why numbers matter. That's why setting goals about numbers matter. Because you know what? You matter. Because I matter, because our neighbors matter, because our friends matter, because our family members matter to God. And that's why numbers are important. So we're praying 400 on Easter. We're praying 250 by the end of the year. I'm praying that there's some other things I'm praying about. But one of the things that God has put on my heart to dream about is that we've been talking about a new building that we would build in the back for our children and our youth. We've been talking about what that would look like. And we started off praying, and God started dropping into our spirit. There was dreams that I started dreaming about the building, like literally having dreams about it. There were others in the church that started having dreams. But I just want to tell you that we're moving beyond the dreaming stage, and now we're actually taking steps to make that a reality. And so here's what we're doing. We're dreaming as a church that God would allow us and enable us to build a building in the back for our youth and our children. Now, we're not there yet. Like, when I look at it, we're not there yet. The numbers don't match up yet. Like, when I look at the budget, we've had a really great start to the year. Like, we've had an impressive start to 2017, but the numbers aren't there yet. We don't have enough money to make that happen. But am I going to sit back and wait? No, we're going to believe God. We're going to say, you know what, this is a God-sized dream, and we're going to walk forward with the green light. So, here's what our timetable looks like. We're believing that in the next couple of months, we're going to do some planning and research. We're going to be preparing and getting us all prepared for that. And at the absolute latest, we're going to have in July, our thought is in July to have a concept, to actually have designs and building plans. It may be sooner than that, but that's our hope right now. That's our dream. And why do we dream this? Because our kids are important, because people are important. So that's what we're dreaming about as a church. I started writing this down. And we're going to have the concept ready by July. In August, we're going to do a complete campaign where we talk about this, where we're going to start building and raising some initial funds to make this happen. And you know what I'm praying for? I'm praying for $100,000 to be raised in 2 months. That is impossible with men, okay? That's impossible but by God. And so I'm praying, God, and maybe it needs to be more. I don't know. But the number that's already in our hearts is that from August to the end of September, we're going to raise $100,000. How is it going to happen? I don't know. But if y'all want to donate, you can. Like, you don't have to wait till then. I don't know how it's going to happen. But here's the reality. I'm believing it's going to happen. I'm believing that we're going to raise those funds. And here's what I'm also believing. I'm believing that on October, as we approach October, we're going to break ground in the back on a brand new facility. I'm believing by October. What I'm also believing is by 2018 Easter, a year from now, as we approach Easter, we're going to have a grand opening to a brand new children and youth facility that's going to be state-of-the-art for our kids in the back. I'm believing. It's not possible with men, but it is possible with God. And so that's what I'm believing for as a church. Now, one last verse I want to share with you today from Psalm 127:1. It's the first part of this verse, and it simply says this: unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. God is building something in our hearts. God is building something in our lives. God is building something right here at Junction Community Church. And for me, I sit back and I'm in awe. I'm in awe of what God is doing. But I believe, again, that our best days are ahead of us. I believe that God is orchestrating this and that He's building it. And unless the Lord builds the house, unless the Lord builds the marriage, unless the Lord builds the building, unless the Lord builds it, the builders labor in vain. And so we're not going to approach this in vain. We're going to let God do what He needs to do as it comes to this building. And so we're going to trust Him each step of the way. And as a way to do that, as I close today, I want to close with this. What I know about God-sized dreams is they cannot be accomplished with our current resources. And so it's going to require growth. It's going to require growth. Personally, I've set the largest financial year for my generosity in 2017. And it far exceeds my 10% of what I bring in. It far exceeds that. And again, that's why I wrote that number down and it scared me. I'm like, okay, God, I don't know how that's going to happen, but I'm going to give away what I can this year. And we're going to see how that comes together. But it's going to require growth. You know what it's also going to require is that as we approach God-sized dreams in our lives, it's not only going to approach that we grow or require that we grow, it's going to also require partnership. And let me just say this about your life and the goals and the dreams that God is putting in your heart. There's some of those things that are too big for you, and you're going to need help. You're going to need to recruit somebody. You're going to need partnership. You're going to need somebody to come and journey alongside of you because the dream that God is putting in your heart is too big for you all by yourself. You need to get that partnership in place to make it happen. And that's what it's going to require for us as a church is that we're going to have to partner. We're going to have to work together. And we're going to have to allow God to bring us together to accomplish this God-sized dream. And finally, any God-sized dream will always bring glory to God. And so my prayer as we approach this over the next several months is simply this. God, you have to build the house. But not only, God, are we asking you to build the house, but we're going to make sure that you get all the glory. It's not about me. It's not even about us being a great church. No, it's about the great God that we serve. And so it's not about us kind of patting ourselves on the back and saying, look at us and look at what we've accomplished. No, certainly it's not about a pastor or leader or anybody that gets on this stage. It's about saying, you know what? We serve a great God, and we're believing Him to do what only He can do. And so God-sized dreams always glorify God. Now, as a takeaway today, I would encourage you to keep this in mind. Root yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the dreams of your heart. Root yourself in the Lord. Get rooted in God. Root yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the dreams of your heart. What dreams is He putting in your heart? If you feel like you can accomplish it, it's not big enough. If you feel like you can get it done in the next couple of months, it's not big enough. Trust God. Believe God. Write it down and believe Him. So as we prepare to close today, I want you to... Two things I want to do before we completely finish up. But today, when we walk out of this building, there's a caution tape sign outside. There's a square staked off in the back. You may have saw it when you were coming in. Maybe you didn't. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to go out back, and I want you to begin to envision what that building's going to look like. Right now, it's marked off. There's a big square back there of what it looks like. And it's exciting. We were staking that out. As Mike and I were staking that out, man, I was excited, man. I'm like, dude, this can happen. We can do this. I was believing. I was dreaming. But then I'm like, okay, it's going to take $600,000. How's that going to happen? But we're believing. We're trusting. And if God gives us the red light, then we'll stop because this is not about us. He has to build this. But out back, what I want you to do is begin to pray. Somebody even this week asked me, can we start to give towards that? In fact, you can. We have a building fund already set up for it. We're not soliciting funds at this point, but that's available. Bottom line is that I want you to go out there and begin to pray and begin to envision and begin to dream. You know, there's a thought about Walt Disney. Y'all know who Walt Disney is? Walt Disney was an incredible thinker. He had an incredible imagination. And there was a time where he had already passed away. And they were building Disney World. And not only it was just about to be done, Disney World in Florida, and it was this great thing, and he had already passed away. And there was a couple of gentlemen that were sitting around, and one of them said, isn't it a shame that Walt never saw this? Isn't it a shame that he died before this place was built? To which the other man replied, Walt already saw it. That's why it's here. And what I want us to begin to dream about today is a building that doesn't exist right now. A building that's not paid for yet. But a building that we're looking out and we're starting to see it even before it's built. We're starting to see it. We're starting to pray for that. And we're starting to trust God to do what only He can in and through that situation. And so with every eye closed, if you're here today and you're in this place and you say, look, I want to have God-sized dreams for my life. I'm telling you, God-sized dreams start with you committing your life to Christ. You can't dream big. You can't dream the God-sized dreams that He has for your life until you've made a commitment to Him. So if you've never committed your life to Christ, or you've kind of fallen away from that and you need to recommit your life to Christ today, I want to give you that opportunity. So if you say that's me, would you lift your hand real high all over this place? God sees your hand. God sees your hand. God sees your hand. And just put them right back down. If there anybody else says that's me today, just lift your hand real high. Say, that's me. That's me. With that being said, I'm going to ask everyone in this place that's hearing me, not only here but also online, I'm going to ask you to repeat a simple prayer with me. Just say this. Say, Jesus, today I commit my life to You. I delight myself in You. Give me the desires of my heart. Place Your desires in my heart. Give me Your dreams for my life. From this day forward, let me live for You and honor You. I pray in Jesus' name.